Hey folks, Rob with Two Guys in a Ride. Today, boy oh boy, do I have a treat for you. We're going to see several exhibits, but first let me tell you where we're at. We're at the Savoy Automobile Museum in beautiful Cartersville, Georgia, and with me I have Mary. Now tell me, one of the cool things about your museum is that if I come back in a month, it's not going to be the same? Not all of it?
Not all of it. We have 5 different galleries. One of them has just cars that the Savoy owns. Not our whole collection, just a small portion of it.
Okay.
The other 4 galleries are set up that one of those changes out every month.
Wow.
So you could come back, say, like every 3 months, and unless the Savoy gallery changes.
But you do change that occasionally. Those are cars you own, but you do still change those out.
A lot of times it's just one car, one or 2 cars, although last summer we took everything out and it was all convertibles with the tops down. And I'm hoping we'll do that again this summer.
That'd be perfect.
But I don't know if they're going to do that. But otherwise, you could come down, say, like every 3 months, and all of the rest of the building would be different.
So one location, but different every time you come back, practically. So, and folks, I really want you to check them out online and check out the rest of our videos. We're going to do a few of these, so make sure you watch those as well. So what do you say, Mary?
Let's do it.
Let's go for a ride.
All right, sounds good.
Welcome the first lady to try and qualify in an A dragster for an NHRA competition, Shirley Muldowney.
Okay, so Mary, I'm excited about what we have behind us. This is Women in Motorsports exhibit you've got.
Yes.
And of all the women in motorsports, I can't think of another one. That's probably what you've done as well in your hallway, great hall here. Yeah. You've highlighted who?
Shirley Muldowney.
Wow.
The queen of drag racing.
There you go. And I'll step off camera.
I should say the queen, Erica Enders, now is the most winningest woman in motorsports. She drives pro stock. She's still very active. But Shirley was the real groundbreaker. And so she started driving professionally in 1965. This particular car is from her 2003 finale run, what she called the last pass. 31 feet long. We had to put it here because it's so big. Normally we have 2 cars sitting in here, but we had to put it here because it is so big. We couldn't fit it back with the other cars in the exhibit. Gorgeous car. She was here about a month ago. The first thing she did when she walked in the building is she got in the car. And someone said to her, well, Shirley, would you drive again? And she said, well, yes, she would love to drive, but she knows that physically at 84 years old, she can't do that anymore, and she recognizes what it takes to really be a driver. But this particular car, when she drove it, her top speed was 327 miles an hour on a quarter mile. Top speed right now is 338 by Brittany Force, but that's only in 1,000 feet. They've had to shorten that down. Her engine here had about 6,000 to 7,000 horsepower.
Wow.
I think they're up to like 11,000 on the top fuel dragsters now. The top of her foil back there is a little over 7 feet. And of course, that was to keep the back end of the car down. Foil on the front keeps the front down so you're not doing wheelies. Monster engine. She even mentioned they have to guesstimate what the horsepower is because you can't put them on a dyno. But this car was built for her when she was doing her last rounds. Again, it was 1923. Around 1985, she had a very serious accident that almost took her out. Took her 2 years to come back from it. She almost lost one of her legs because of the damage done.
Wow, okay.
And it was one of those fluky things. She said, that they would run motorcycle tires on the front, and it wasn't unusual for the tube to come out of the tire, and it did, and instead of flying away, it wrapped around the steering mechanism, and that's what caused the car to crash. And she hit the wall like at 200 miles an hour. And the car actually sheared off right about where her legs were, so as the car was flying, her legs were exposed. That's how she got so much damage. But she did 2 years of rehab and came back and jumped right back in the car and went right back to driving. So yes, she put up with a lot of grief. When she was going to go for her top fuel license, they were really sort of hesitant to give it to her, but Garlits, Tommy Ivo, and Connie Coletta signed for her. And she made the point that when the NHRA realized that having a woman in a car could fill the stands, all of a sudden, okay, fine, you can race the car.
She had quite the following.
Quite the following. Well,
and she had quite the record. I'll show you this really quick over here. 18 NHRA Top Fuel victories,
And
one
we have
World
them.
Championship.
We have them sitting in a display case further down
Yeah,
in the
look at that,
museum.
folks.
She lent us her Wallies.
Talk about a maverick and somebody ahead of her time. Now,
Very
I
much
noticed
so.
the car was pink. What's the story behind that?
Well, when she was much earlier in her racing career, they would have to like park their cars out. Now, this wasn't a dragster at the time. And someone would come along and they would give you a number on your car. So that's you were lining up to go through elimination. Well, someone wrote the name Cha-Cha on her window. And she
Okay.
had dark hair. She used to wear big gold earrings. So she said, I guess somebody thinks I'm Hispanic, even though she's not. And so Tommy Ivo was the one who told her, leave the nickname on there. Paint your car pink. Now, he was one of the Mouseketeers. He understood showmanship.
Sure.
His nickname was TV Tommy Ivo. He said, do it,
Oh, yeah.
and you're establishing, a persona and a nickname. And so that started the pink cars in the name of Cha-Cha.
And of course, it must have been nice for the ladies who were now coming out to the events. They could identify really quick when Shirley was on the line because she had that big, bright pink car. And it was kind of like in your face, boys.
Absolutely. Now, one of the things that she did talk about in the very beginning, she would be maybe like, coming up to the line and people would be throwing soda cans at her. But she said
Really?
this is in the day of steel cans and they were full. So when she was first coming up, she got a lot of grief. And she said, people would throw stuff, and one of the things was like full soda cans. She said, if you get hit with one of those, it's going to hurt. But if you mouthed off to her, she would just as soon punch you in the face in a heartbeat. And she was known for that. If you stepped over the line, she held her ground.
She had to have that chutzpah to be in that definitely, which is still very much a man's sport.
Very much so.
Good for her. But it wasn't just all show. It was definitely go with all the awards and the races and the championships.
Absolutely.
She actually didn't just go out there as a marketing ploy by the NHRA or anything like that.
Yeah.
She put pedal to the metal. She put the rubber down on the road, and she won those championships fair and square. And actually, probably a little harder than what others would have.
Probably would, and she also, now she never really had big corporate sponsorship. She said it was slowly starting to come into the field when she was there. So she never had corporate sponsors. So she pretty much had to run 3 or 4 nights a week in order to raise the money to keep the car on the line, because the NHRA in the beginning only did like 4 national events. So if you were going to stay in business, you had to match race all year long. And so that's what she had to do. So she was constantly on the road. She was working on the car herself. She knew how to work on the cars. Her son was her crew chief. So it was, for the two of them, it was a family affair, but it was a much different form of racing now. I was just listening to an interview with John Force, and they were asking him about Shirley, and he said he loves Shirley. He said Shirley will tell you exactly how she feels, and he really appreciates that. And he, has talked to her about his daughters, and he said, with my daughters, he said, I had the business going. Yes, they had to come in and learn how to drive the cars, but they weren't starting from scratch and having to do what Shirley did in terms of racing all the time, raising all the funds, things like that. So that his girls have a distinct advantage. And even some of the other women racers today, if you're coming in with corporate sponsorship, you're not having to do the things that Shirley did. So to him, it's understandable why sometimes she had to take the position that they did, why sometimes she would punch you in the face if you said something, because she had to hold her ground. But because of what she did, it has made racing, like for his girls, a whole lot easier.
Well, she was definitely the trailblazer there, because you think about it. Think about what you had to do on race day to show up, to know that you were going to be able to successfully pilot this thing down the track, and then you go and add all that other, well, we'll just call it BS on the side that she dealt with. I mean, the chutzpah that she had, definitely, I mean, kudos, because we talk about it, I've talked about it in engineering of automobiles and of design of automobiles and the technology that goes into automobiles. We look at a lot of that today and we say, oh yeah, well, that's commonplace. Well, somebody had to be first. Somebody had to invent that thing first. Well, Shirley was first here.
Yeah,
and
she was.
Because of her contribution to the sport has made the sport much better.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Much better, and all of us much better for that. And I know there may be some out there like, oh, a woman's place isn't a home. It's like, well, sorry, folks, it's not 1950 anymore.
Yeah.
But you know, to see something like this in person, and
the car is magnificent.
Well,
this came up from the Garlits Museum, and we were down at the Garlits Museum last summer, and the car was there. But because of the way it's a place to go, but because everything is so stacked up.
It's in Ocala, Florida, and I was there a month ago, and all I could do is get some photographs because it's really hard to see, and I'm sure folks, if you appreciate what I'm trying to do, I'm trying to capture this whole big 31-foot car in one frame with Mary and the museum, and it's tough, and at Garlits, you're right, they're almost stacked on top of each other.
They're stacked, so you don't really get to see them and appreciate them.
No.
You can't even really necessarily always stand to the side. Here you can walk around it, you can really see the car for what it is. And you can get up close to it. Granted, I mean, I'd love to climb in it, but I should have asked her when she was here. It's like, Shirley, can I get in your car? She probably would have said yes. My boss would have handed me my head, but she probably wouldn't have cared. But yeah, you can get right up close to it. You can see it. You can see the engine and really appreciate it for what it is and what they were putting together.
Wow.
And to go back and look at the history, there are women in motorsports who we're working with. Just did a documentary on Shirley, and they showed it here, and they had a lot of the old footage of back in the day when she qualified to get her license in a gas dragster and actually broke the record when she did her qualifying run. You can have your license, but you can't drive on certain beats. You can do this, but you can't do that. And the fight that she had to do just even to show up at like Englishtown and race.
Yeah.
So
we just take it for granted nowadays.
Yeah.
It's just like, well, of course. No, it wasn't. Of course,
no,
it was a
not
fight.
at all, not at all. And so, magnificent piece of machinery. Of course, the sport has developed. The cars are much more powerful than they are then. But to see what she was able to put together, and again, racing 3 or 4 nights a week in order to put food on the table, keep the team running, supply the parts, because there's no corporate sponsorship.
Yeah. Holy cow. Wow. Do all that.
And she even mentioned that when they were getting ready for runs, now I know when they do it now, you may have about 16 cars are in the field, it's somewhat limited. She said it was not surprising to have maybe over 40 cars staging.
Oh, wow.
And Don Garlits would come and he would drive and he would put himself right up to the front. He just did what he wanted because he was the king.
That's right.
So she
Big
said,
Daddy.
Big Daddy, she said, sometimes did some things that were, not necessarily on the up and up.
But no one was going to question Big Daddy Don. So.
You were not going to fight with Big Daddy. And they actually, for the longest time, had a very adversarial relationship. Oh, they did not get along at all.
Really? Okay.
And after her accident, he realized, why am I doing this?
Sure.
And after that, they forged a friendship that today is very close. He was going to be here the Friday she was here. Unfortunately, he wasn't feeling well, but he was going to come up to be here for when they showed when they did the debut of the documentary. And I was hoping I was going to get to meet him. I mean, I met Shirley to meet Don Garlits.
Right, at the same time. Oh, my
gosh. But
gosh.
it didn't happen, but oh well.
So that's it for this video, folks, but we will have some more videos. Mary's going to continue the tour through the museum, and we're going to highlight a few other cars. So make sure you click in that little link up above so you make sure and check out the other videos.